Come with me on wings of story, across the silver sea to once upon a time.
The snow, it whirled. The rain streamed down, it sloshed and swirled, and washed the colors from the world. Bare trees shook like chilly bones. Children grumbled in their homes. Birds and beasts all wished the sun would show its golden face again. A baker missed the sun so much, she took some flour from her hutch. Some butter, sugar, eggs, and yeast, she said, I'll bake a sunny feast. Because the real sun likes to hide, I'll make my own small sun inside. She kneaded bread dough, rich and gold, glossy, springy, smooth to hold. She shaped a bread so round and grand, it seemed the sun shone in her hands. Perhaps the baker's loving touch helped her sun bread grow so much. Perhaps it was the yeast or flour. Something gave that sun bread power. It rose and rose and rose and rose. A smell from heaven filled the nose of every chilly child and dog, every porcupine and hog. They saw that good bread rise and shine and stop their grumbles, groans, and whines. The baker's made a sun, they cried. The baker let them all inside and filled them up from toe to head with puffy, hot, delicious bread. Bread so brilliant, bright, and sunny, summer seemed to fill their tummies. Bread so fluffy and so fine, they felt themselves begin to shine. And then, surprise, begin to rise, to float and flutter, flip and fly, light as kites into the sky. And down again to dance and sing, they all joined hands and hooves and wings, and praised the joy good bread can bring. They made a sound so sweet and deep. The real sun woke up from its sleep. It burst out through the lumpy clouds and streamed down on the startled crowd. The sun is here, they gave a cheer. It wants some bread, the baker said. So everyone threw bits of bread, chunks and hunks and crusty crumbs into the sky, up to the sun, who ate it up and beamed back down on every city, field, and town. It dried the fur of mouse and dog and warmed the soul of bear and frog. It glittered on the blue-green seas, wove golden ribbons through the trees. It painted colors on the day, melted all the snow away, and brought the shadows out to play. It scattered rainbows soft and bright, fed the plants with its clear light. Streaked the sky red, yellow, pink, and purple, then began to sink. And as the sun slipped down to rest, the baker shouted this request. Come back for breakfast, please, dear son. I'll bake fresh sun bread and sun buns. The baker baked the whole night long. And then, hooray, at the crack of dawn, the sun was back to spread its light like honey on each yummy bite, and dance around the world and sing of all the joy good bread can bring. And now, when it is cold and gray and dark and icy, guess who plays with flour, sugar, eggs, and yeast? Guess who bakes bread stars and beasts, bread birds and flowers, boats and towers, tons of buttery small suns which shine until the real one comes. The baker and her crew, that is who. And if things have not changed, they are still the same today.
Well, thank you for that yummy story, Hailey.
Thank
Makes me just ready to go into the kitchen and bake something yummy.
Me too.
Well, now we're going to switch over to Richard Corbal and hear a story from him. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, Steve. Thank you. Thank you, Hailey, for that wonderful story. This is a story based on a Shona tale from Zimbabwe. Moonboat, moonboat, soft on silver set afloat, sail me up to tallest tree, sail me over land and sea. Where did it happen? When did it happen? Where and when did it not happen? There was once a very old man, and he had many cows, goats, donkeys, and plenty of land. With so much land, he grew plenty of food, enough to share with all in the village. On top of that, he was very wise, and so he was the chief of his village. This village chief had 2 children. These children were twins, and the chief loved them both, one as much as the other. The twins were named Chipo and Chinangwa. The chief knew his own end was coming, and so he wanted to find out which child was the wisest, so that he could pass on his title as village chief before his own days were done. Because he knew his end was near, he had to choose the wisest child soon. The chief called his 2 children together and spoke. Chipo and Chinangua, my children, he said, before I go to join my ancestors, one of you must become chief. I love you both, and I do not want to favor one or the other of you, and yet I have to choose which of you is the wisest. In our house, there are 2 large rooms. They are exactly the same size. What I want you to do, my children, is to each fill up one of the rooms. The room must be completely filled, side to side and top to bottom. In 1 week's time, I will check to see which of you has completed this task. Now, this was a hard job. What could you do to fill a room completely and in 1 short week? This was a challenging test indeed, given by a wise chief. Now that night, the moon was shining, and the 2 children went into the forest. Each went their own way. They each spent the night in silent thought, until by dawn they knew what they would do. Chinangua came out of the forest in the morning and went back to the house. Before coming home, Chipo went down to the river where there were many stones and began to carry some to the house. Back and forth Chipo went, from river to the house and back again. But by the end of the first day, little progress had been made. Early the next day, Chipo resumed carrying the rocks and worked until the sun set, scarcely taking the time to eat and barely taking a rest. Each day, Chipo got to work early and didn't stop until dark, and at the end of the week felt tired and sad. The chief went and looked in and saw that the room Chipo worked in was only half full, so he went to find Chinangua. Chinangua had waited until the week had nearly passed, and on the last night headed for the other room, and carrying only a few small items. All the people in the village thought Chinangua was crazy. How could anyone fill a room with just those few small items? Well, Chinangua ignored them and went quietly to the room, and the chief followed. Everyone in the village came to watch through the windows. Chinangua knelt down in the middle of the room and put a candle on a small dish, then took a matchstick from a little wooden box, struck it, and lit the candle. Chinangua's candle filled the room with light. From floor to ceiling and wall to wall, the room was filled with light. The child had done what was asked, and thus the chief could see that Chinangua's wisdom shined brightly. When the old chief died, Chinangua was made the new chief and instantly appointed Chipo as first advisor. And together they governed with wisdom and strength for many, many years. And if things have not changed, they are still the same today.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you for that wonderful story that somehow it rings a bell from a recent winter fair. Perhaps we saw it made come to life with puppets, as I recall. A wonderful story. Thank you, Richard. Now we will be switching to a story from Gabby Raiders. Let me just make sure that she is able to unmute and tell us her story. Welcome, Gabby.
Hello, Steve. Hi, thank you, Richard, for that beautiful story. Seashell, seashell, tell a tale to me. Tell it to the ocean, tell it to the sea. Where did it happen? When did it happen? Where and when did it not happen? Winter was beginning. Snow and ice covered the ground, and the days were growing dark. Mother Earth called her creatures together and said, "It is time for our evergreen garden. It will bring warmth and light to the earth in deep winter. Who will help me?" "We will help lay a path through the woods," said the stones, "and we shall sparkle in the candlelight like the stars in the sky," said the crystals. "We shall lay a spiral path of evergreen branches," said the pine and the fir. "We shall hold the candles," said the apples, "for we have stars in our hearts." The queen of the bees said she would give wax from her hive to make golden candles. "I shall bring new life to the garden," said the red, red rose. The animals of the forest spoke. They would guard the garden and make sure no harm came to those who walked it. The stars said they wanted to take part, and some fell to the earth to light the pathway of the garden. Mother Earth thanked them all and said only one thing was missing. The children's love was needed to fill the garden. Then came the children, and one by one, they walked the spiral of the garden, lighting their candles and setting them down on the golden stars. Soon the garden shone with light. Now our garden is full of light. It shines with love in the dark winter's night. Seashell, seashell, tell a tale to me. Tell it to the ocean, tell it to the sea.
Oh, thank you, Gabby. Thank you for that story. Brings us back to the Garden of Light celebration that we all wish we could celebrate as we once did and as we will again in our future, because the light is coming back. I have a story to share with you. This will be our last story of the morning, and it's not the story that my friends, my other storytellers, expect. I took a detour and found a different story that I knew I had to tell. And this is a story that I found in a book of stories by Baba Hari Das. And I took a little bit of liberties, and I'm sure that that would be okay. I'm certain. So here is the story that I would like to share with you this solstice day. Come with me on wings of story across the silver sea to once upon a time. Where did it happen? And when did it happen? Where and when did it not happen? It happened that once there was a very big, a very strong, and a very poisonous snake. He was very, very old and very, very wily. Wrapped behind his head was a big hood, and on the hood was a brilliant, sparkling gem. The gem glittered and sparkled so beautifully, and the snake was very hungry. The snake was always very hungry. He would slither among the other animals, hypnotize them with the sparkling gem, and then eat them up. He wasn't a very nice snake. One day, an even bigger snake came into his jungle. This snake was 4 times longer and fatter than the gem snake. The gem snake did not want to share his jungle, so he chased after the big snake, chased him right out of the jungle. Then the gem snake returned to the jungle and slithered up into a tree to rest. He fell sound asleep. And while he was sleeping, an elephant came by to eat some leaves. The snake woke up and saw the elephant stretching up his trunk to get some leaves. The snake bit the elephant. The elephant dropped the leaves and ran and ran and ran clear out of the jungle. What became of the elephant, I never knew. All of the other animals of the jungle soon heard about how the snake had scared away the bigger snake and scared away the elephant, and they were frightened. They didn't want to be eaten or chased away by the gem snake. So the animals ran away to another jungle. But the crafty gem snake followed them. Now it so happened that a clever monkey lived in that jungle. She saw all the animals were in distress, so she began to think of ways to get rid of the gem snake for everyone's sake. She climbed high up into a tall tree, and she watched the snake for several days. The monkey watched in the morning. She watched while the snake napped at midday. She watched where he slept at night. She watched and learned that the gem snake went down to the river every morning to drink. And when the gem snake drank, he always put the gem down beside him on the sandy bank. One morning, when the snake went down to the river to drink, the monkey secretly followed. The monkey kept her eyes fixed on the snake's tail and did not look at the gem because she knew it was powerful and dangerous. The snake put down the gem on the sand as usual and began to drink. The monkey drew closer and closer and carefully, quietly covered the gem with sand. Then the monkey pounced on the snake and grabbed the snake by the tail. The snake frantically looked all around in all directions, looking for the gem, but it was nowhere to be found. When the snake realized his gem was gone, he went mad and began biting everything in sight. The monkey stayed out of reach until the mad snake went away. Then the monkey dug up the gem and went back into the jungle. Now the monkey was the powerful one of the jungle, and all the other animals were afraid of her. She held the gem tightly as she climbed trees and went all about in the forest. One day, a woodcutter came into the jungle. He spent his days gathering fallen branches and cutting them into wood for the fire. He was amazed when one day he noticed something glittering up in a tree. He looked, and then he saw that a monkey was holding a beautiful gem high up in a tree. He thought, if only I could get my hands on that gem, I would offer it to my queen. She would be pleased to receive such a glittering gift. The next day, the monkey returned to the jungle with a dozen shiny red apples. He laid one on the ground for the monkey and hid behind a tree. He waited and watched, and nothing happened. So the woodcutter picked up the apple and threw it into the tree right to the monkey. The monkey caught the apple with one hand and happily ate it. Then the woodcutter tossed up a bigger apple, and the monkey needed 2 hands to catch the apple. Then the woodcutter began throwing up apples, one after another. The monkey became so excited that she forgot all about the gem and focused entirely on catching the apples. The monkey didn't notice when the gem dropped out of the tree. The woodcutter most certainly did, because that is what he had been planning for. He snatched the gem right up, placed it in a piece of cloth, and ran off with it. He ran straight to the queen and presented the gem to her. The queen was delighted to receive such a beautiful and powerful gift. She thanked the woodcutter, and she made him the governor of his province. Well, news of this precious gift began to spread throughout the world. Every king and queen wanted it for their own. One by one, many kingdoms tried to conquer the queen's kingdom and take the gem for their own, but the gem made the queen's protectors invincible. She made the queen's kingdom the most powerful in the world, but that did not stop other kings and queens from trying to come and take away the gem. As time went on, the world grew weary from the fighting. The stars and planets, the sun and moon grew sad to look down upon such discontent and strife. The world grew colder and darker. But the queen was a peaceful woman. She was a wise woman. She was a kind woman. She did not like all the fighting. She knew that not only were the people of her kingdom suffering, the people of the world were suffering. A sole darkness of night was upon the lands of the earth. The queen thought and listened to the wisdom from the stars and planets. And then she knew just what to do. She arose early one morning and climbed to the top of the highest mountain in her land. It took all day, and then it took most of the night. And when she reached the top, she looked down into the deep crater of the mountain. It was a sleeping volcano with hot lava bubbling in the depths of the crater. She called out, "If anyone owns this gem, there will never be peace. The only rightful owner is the earth herself." And the queen tossed the gem into the bottomless depths of the volcano, into the bubbling lava. The mountain swallowed the gem. A big puff of smoke came from the crater, and just then, the sun rose in the eastern sky. The sky danced in many colors, reds and oranges, yellows, purple, and finally the sky was a clear blue, and the golden sun shone again upon the earth. The queen smiled. The gem was united with the earth forever. The sun smiled on everything its light touched, and hearts were warmed, and heads enlightened, and there was peace, and there was joy, and it was good. And the queen began her long walk back down the mountain, back to her home. And if things haven't changed, the sun is still smiling upon the earth on this day and every day. Come with me on wings of story across the silver sea to once upon a time. Well, those are our stories for this solstice day, for this conjunction day of Jupiter and Saturn. But before we go, I would like to read to you one small thing. Thinking about the evening, thinking about how many of us like to light a candle, not only on a solstice evening, on many winter evenings when the sun sets early. On many festival days, we use candles. And I would like to read you this that is sort of about a candle, and it's sort of about you and me. You have lit me. Thoughtfully, you look at my light, perhaps enjoying it. For my part, I am happy to be a light. If I were not, I would be lying in the box, like any other candle, with no purpose. Only now, burning bright, do I have a purpose. Yet, as I burn, I shrink. I know that soon I will be a stump. That's how it is. Either remain whole in the box and not shrink, nor have a purpose, or burn bestowing light and warmth, knowing my purpose, yet sacrificing myself. Surely the latter has more meaning than remaining cold in the box. Similarly with people, remain as you are without running risks, and you will not lose. Yet nothing will happen either. You will gain no knowledge of the purpose of your existence. You will be just like the candles in the box. But choose to burn, giving light and warmth. Others will rejoice in your existence. Then you will find your purpose. In turn, you will have to give of yourself. You will have to give of what is alive in you, of your joys and sorrows, of what is dear to you, of your faithfulness, your fears, your yearnings, of all that lives in you. Never fear to burn down, to shrink. That is merely outer appearance. Inwardly, you will only grow brighter. Of these things think when contemplating a burning candle, for in truth, such a candle is you. I am only a small candle. Burning alone, my light is dim, my warmth minimal. Alone, I do not amount to much, but together with others, one can affect greatness. Light can be contagious. Those were the words of a man named Otto Hondorf. And I hope you have enjoyed our morning together. It's still a beautiful day, at least here in Santa Cruz, California. So I hope you get yourselves outside and breathe in and soak in the sunlight, even though this is the shortest day of the year. And when the sun sets this evening, go on outside and look towards the south, and you'll see Jupiter and Saturn, and you can hardly see the difference between them tonight. They are as close as they ever get.
Come with me on wings of story, across the silver sea to once upon a time.
Well, everyone, happy solstice to you. May the warmth and light of the sun shine on you. And may the deep peace be in you. Bye for now.